my computer before.
Diane, do you want to start with the agenda, or do you want me to jump in with the ground rules first? I can do either while we're getting.
Yeah, you can go ahead and jump in with the ground rules. Thank you so much, Paige.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. It's really great to see you all again. It's kind of fun to get to facilitate 2 meetings and see your faces twice. I think, Regina, you'll have to enable me to share my screen.
You should be all set.
All right. All right. Welcome all. Thanks so much again for making time to be here this evening. And as a reminder, my name is Paige Buono. I'm an independent contractor just facilitating the meeting and kicking us off with a couple ground rules. These will be familiar to last time. But again, I'm wanting to make sure that we show respect for the values and opinions of all participants in and outside the meeting, that everyone comes with an open mind, that we offer critiques of ideas, not humans, that we stay solutions oriented, that you monitor your participation. I think especially during these meetings that are so short and we really want to make sure we hear from everyone. I'll make sure I'm monitoring, but we ask that you self-monitor as well, especially if for the quieter folks on the call, giving them a chance to chime in. Stay focused on facts and respect the role of the facilitator. And my role, as I just mentioned, is really to ensure that all voices are heard. That's the whole purpose of this working group. And so I will, if I have to, I will interrupt. I hate interrupting, but I will do it. And I think, as I mentioned last time, if we'll have some time limits on some sort of round robin style sessions for feedback. And if you're going over, I'll like wave this blue folder as a way to get your attention in case you've just kind of lost track of time. And then I'll step in and interject if I need to. Again, I don't like to. And then keep us grounded in facts and enforce the ground rules and protect the process. As a reminder, and I think we worked through all the kinks last time, but we'll use the hand raise function a lot if you have questions. Please mute your microphone when you aren't speaking. If I have to mute you because there's background noise, we'll let you know so that you aren't confused when you come back. Yeah, stay engaged and raise your hand if you have questions. Those are the big things. Does anyone have any Zoom questions, just kind of the technical side of things, or everybody feeling good?
I'm using hand raise, okay.
Raise your hand physically or by the...
You know, either one is fine since you have your video on.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like we do have one, Regina, it looks like we have a Neil Denton in the room who might not be a member of the working group. There we go.
Any message from Hope yet?
Nothing from her yet.
Okay.
I think we can go ahead and keep going.
Okay.
Also, Paige, I believe Neil works for the city. He's the city's sustainability planner. So I'm not sure if he should be in the meeting or not, but he does work for the city.
Excellent.
Okay, perfect. Do I also have the ability to share my screen, Regina? Okay, great. So I'm going to just jump in with our first presentation here since we're already a couple of minutes behind schedule. The first thing that we're going to be doing is just an overview of sort of where we are now versus how far we've come from the sort of the beginning of this community engagement phase, and go over the demonstrations as well. So I will share my screen.
And while Cheyenne's doing that, just so you all can kind of be thinking about it, what we'll ask you to do after is we'll do a round robin to get your feedback on the demonstration projects and kind of what you've heard from your communities of late. And you'll each have between 2 and 3 minutes for that. So just as Cheyenne's kind of going through, if you all want to take notes or be prepared for that.
Okay, can everyone see my screen here?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, great. So this, the Santa Fe LED conversion project, which we're all very intimately familiar with, We started this project with a lot of goals in mind. So we have our energy reduction goals for the city of Santa Fe that also garners cost savings by reducing energy consumption. We have our lighting level goals to improve lighting levels and to make sure that we're bringing everything in Santa Fe up to compliance to the extent that it's possible. We have the sustainability and comfort goals that are associated with ensuring that human health, wildlife health, people are comfortable, and also that we're protecting the night sky. And then of course we have reliability and service goals to ensure that we don't have the same sort of maintenance problems that we're having now, which is a huge impetus for the project, to make sure that we're reducing the outage level and that overall the reliability of Santa Fe's upgraded street lighting system is significantly improved. So just to go back through sort of some of the situations with Santa Fe's current lighting, really it boils down to aging infrastructure that requires a lot of maintenance. The high pressure sodium, mercury vapor, and metal halide lights that are throughout the city of Santa Fe are old and nearly obsolete technology. And there's a lot of darkness throughout the city. Some of that is by design, and some of that is from a lack of design perpetuated by outages. So all of this is stuff that we're trying to address through the conversion project. So to go through a little bit of the design methodology that we've undertaken throughout this process, we had to first analyze where is the city now. So this involves getting a good understanding of the current inventory. What does the technology throughout the city look like now, and where are the gaps? This overlays with the requirements for the project, essentially. So what are the project goals? So saving energy, meeting lighting compliance levels as they're articulated by the American Standard, the Illuminating Engineering Society, IES. We also have our dark sky goals, and then just our general community comfort, keeping people safe, those kinds of things, all sorts of goals for the project. And then we go through and analyze how does that intersect with the other parties that we're working with. So PNM and rate 20 dictates the electricity rate for all of the city's lights, and half the streetlights in Santa Fe are owned by PNM. So keeping PNM close to us in this conversation has been super important to ensure that the solutions that we're coming up with are holistically viable for the city of Santa Fe. And all of this, again, goes back to that city ordinance, which you can kind of see at the bottom of the screen here. And that's really what this project is framed around. So since February 24th, the public hearing at the governing body meeting, we've undertaken quite a bit of community engagement activities. The first of which was the emails. So even before February 24th, members of the government were receiving a lot of emails from people about the project. And we've been logging those emails. We've curated an email list. And we've also distributed 4 newsletters to that email list over the course of this community engagement period. So 2 in April and 2 in May. And the feedback that we continue to get through email is something really important. We also launched our project website in April, which features education, information about the project, and project motivations and goals. It's also been updated with frequently asked questions, documents, and other content as members of the public have asked. And we also have a feedback form on that website, which has received over 200 responses. We also formed you all, the working group. We went through weeks of connecting with different organizations throughout the city to make sure that the working group truly has a balance of all the different diverse and unique communities throughout Santa Fe. And we had our first meeting. And since then, you all have been doing a great job with community outreach and connecting with each other and with all of your fellow neighbors to understand how everyone's feeling about the process. We also launched our demonstrations on April 23rd with 2 staffed locations, so members of the public can come out and ask questions. And with feedback that we got from those original demonstrations, we've actually updated 2 of our demonstration sites to feature visual comfort lenses in response to feedback. And all 4 demonstrations will be available through May 24th, which is the deadline for the feedback collection window as well. We've also presented to several committees. So we went to the Mayor's Committee on Disability on April 15th, the Public Safety Committee on April 22nd, and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee last week. So we've been able to hear the concerns of those groups as well and ensure that they're incorporated into the project considerations. We've also done a good bit of external communication We met with the International Dark Sky Association's John Barentine on March 31st to first talk about the street lighting project and how that fits into Santa Fe becoming a dark sky designated community. The executive director of the International Dark Sky Association, Ruskin Hartley, has been in contact with the mayor and governing body and also members of the project team to further discuss their value-centered lighting policy and how that shapes the street lighting design and also is extrapolated into all the lighting of Santa Fe. And then the project team and Public Works also met with Jesse Sanders, who's the project manager for the Tucson, Arizona street lighting conversion, to understand what happened in that project as well. So going forward to the community engagement, we've received over 200 responses, and the analysis that you're seeing here is of the 185 responses as of May 10th. The map on the left side of the screen shows where all the feedback is coming from. So you can see that a lot of the feedback that we're getting has come from districts 1 and 2, with a little bit less coming from districts 3 and 4. So just an interesting map to see to sort of contextualize the feedback. Of those 185 people, we had about 215 priority mentions. So some folks mentioned more than one priority in their response. Preserving the night sky was the number one. 67 people mentioned that as being a priority for them. Reducing the overall lighting level throughout the city, limiting wildlife impact, preserving and promoting human health and safety, reducing fugitive light, and preserving ambiance were the other most frequently mentioned priorities. And then of the 115 folks who mentioned color temperature specifically, 33% or about 38 people said they wanted the lowest possible color temperature that's reasonable. 26 people, so 23% of that group, both said less than or equal to 3000 Kelvin or less than or equal to 2700 Kelvin. And just about 20% gives us the 2200 or 2000 Kelvin color temperature feedback. And then we had our first working group meeting, and just to remind you all of the priorities that came out of that, we had conserving energy, promoting safety and security, protecting wildlife, improving the night sky, and reducing fugitive light as the top 5. And then there were a few others, which I have on a slide a bit later. And then just to go through the demonstrations the feedback that we received from the demonstrations, the residential demonstration out at Governor Miles received the most support of all the demonstration sites. And as I mentioned before, we did receive some comments that the fixtures on Frenchie's Field, that local roadway lighting, seemed to have some glare. So that's why we introduced that visual comfort lens option to reduce the glare that people were perceiving off of that higher output local roadway fixture. So now I'm going to just pull up a quick video to show you all about the demonstrations. So this is at Jaguar Drive. This is one of our local demonstration sites. So there's residential, local, and major roadways. These are for that local roadway type. So you can see right here, the first thing that we start with is an existing high pressure sodium light in the city. So we're going to start this and go forth down the street, flying overhead. We get to the intersection here. Right over here is Cesar Chavez Elementary School.
I think, I'm not sure we're seeing the video.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. Here, let me stop sharing and go again. Thank you for stopping me. How about now? Okay, great. Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay, so anyway, here's an existing high pressure sodium light on that side of the street. We're flying over the street and we come up to the intersection here. Oops, there we go. And right over here is Cesar Chavez Elementary School. So you can see at this intersection, we have some existing high pressure sodium and also some of the 5000 Kelvin LEDs that have been installed at intersections throughout the city by the city's engineering division over the past few years. So those 5000 Kelvin LEDs at the time that they were installed were viewed as the best, most safe, most efficient technology. And now we know that it's really not the best option. And you can see that those 5000 Kelvin LEDs do cast sort of a bluish, very white kind of light, especially compared to their high pressure sodium counterparts. As we move down the street here, you can see some privately owned 5000 Kelvin LED lights in the parking lot of this school. And as we keep going, we're going to get to our first demonstration fixture. So you can see the difference between how the light hits the ground of these two different color temperature fixtures, and how this one is a much warmer tone than that 5,000 Kelvin LED, and that the lighting distribution across the roadway goes all the way across. Now we get to an existing high pressure sodium. So the light underneath the fixture you can see is really, really good, nice. The roadway is well illuminated, but unfortunately the other side of the road has almost no light on it at all. So this is what we're talking about when we say that the existing infrastructure within the city is not compliant with RPA 18. So there's almost no light hitting the ground over here. And there's actually a lot of light going back behind the fixture where it's really not needed. So as we continue down the street here, we have the high pressure sodium on the right side and the new LED demonstration fixtures on the left. You can see how much more effectively the light is distributed out of the LED fixture, and that it's actually going all the way across the roadway, and the backlight is reduced significantly to really just hit the sidewalk and not much else. So as we continue to move down the street here, you can see that sort of happening in repetition. We hit another high pressure sodium light where there's lots of backlighting going back into a yard where it's not really helpful, but almost no light going onto the street. And as we continue here, the LED light distributes the light around the roadway. And we continue around the corner with another high pressure sodium light here and another LED fixture here. And then as the video concludes, we go past a few high pressure sodium fixtures that really emphasize the situation in Santa Fe and just how dark a lot of parts of the roadway are now with the existing infrastructure.
You know what? That was so great. Thank you so much, Cheyenne, for that. It was such a great to be able to see it. I've just been made aware that everybody that's in the waiting room actually can't even see the presentation, and I thought they would be able to. So I'm not quite sure what to do. There's way more, there's 26 people in the waiting room that we wanted to allow to watch the presentation, but they're not able to see it from the waiting room. I wonder what we could do. Any suggestions?
Is this on the city's
No,
Zoom?
we're not YouTubing it. I don't know if I
That was going to be my question is, could you start broadcasting it live to Facebook or YouTube?
Oh, wait, I could. Hold on a second. Let's see if that works. I don't know if I have the right scoop on that. Let's see if I can. Grant Zoom permission, see it. What is this? I don't know. Allow? See and permanently delete your YouTube. I think I'm going to go for it. And I'm going to go for that too. Okay, confirm my choices. Allow. Okay, hold on. Let's see if it's going to happen. No, I don't have the ability. Darn. Oh boy. Well, I guess what we could, there's a couple options that I can think of. So sorry for this. What you want to, let's see, one of the things that I can think of is that we could ask people to enter and just not use the, they don't get to take the floor, right? Because we're going to go around the room of the members and you have that list page so we know who it is.
Since we're recording this, could we just post the recording for folks to watch?
Well, yes, I think that's a fair option, but it's not what we said would happen. So I feel like it would be better if we made it so what we said would happen was that they could watch.
Yeah, I guess my one recommendation would be if we're going to allow others into the room, that if they aren't abiding by the ground rules, and I think we need to set another ground rule that if you are not on the working group and you speak, that we will eject you.
Okay.
I think that there needs to be a fair expectation that we don't, that the working.
Okie dokie. So I guess I'm going to start admitting them. Here we go. We'll see how this goes.
Regina, you have the capability as the host. This is Alba. You
Uh-huh.
have the capability as the host to mute people, and they cannot speak unless you unmute them. You as the
Okey-dokey.
host need to mute everybody,
Okey-doke.
and then
Okay.
only allow people to speak that you want to speak.
Okay. Okay. Okie dokie. Sorry for this little mid-meeting adjustment. Okay. We'll make a little announcement. I'm not when we're done, when everybody gets in. I'm sure they'll be great about just observing, as was their desire and expectation. Let's see, almost there. Got a few more. Okay, just two more coming in, and I think we'll have everybody. So, and let's see, I'm gonna mute all. Okay, no, not working. Okay, so what I guess everybody that was in the waiting room until just this minute, we realized that you couldn't see the presentation. We were hoping to manage participation that way, but we've let everybody in the waiting room into the meeting so that you can observe, and only members of the committee are going to be asked to speak. And but we're happy to have you here observing, and so if you can, I don't know, Paige, if you want to add anything to that.
No, I would just say that, yeah, if we have trouble, we will ask you to leave and you're able to view the recording, but we don't anticipate that at all.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, carrying right along. You guys missed a little bit. It was mostly an introduction. We will release the recording. It's massive. We'll have to figure out how to do that. But this presentation will also be posted on the PrimeGov website in the next couple of days. You'll have access to that there. And yeah, we'll go from there.
Is there anything you'd like me to go back through for those folks who've just joined us? Maybe I could play the video again, or because I was just about to open it to discussion. This is the last thing that I had in terms of community
how are we
feedback
doing
and
on time,
demonstration.
Paige? How's our time look, Paige?
We're a little tight, but I think we're okay. You said, Cheyenne, the second presentation is how long? 10 minutes?
The second presentation will be about 10 minutes.
Okay, yeah. Let's see the video one more time. I think it would be valuable.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just go through this one more time. For those of us in the working group, you get a chance to see it again. Okay, so this is a drone video of our demonstration at Jaguar Drive. So this is a demonstration for local roadway fixtures, talking about residential, local, and major roadway solutions. So this falls into that local category. The video starts here with an existing high pressure sodium on the right side. And then we're going to move down Jaguar Drive here to the intersection. So Cesar Chavez Elementary School is up in the top left, essentially that parking lot that you're seeing. So stopping at this intersection here, we get a good cross section of the existing technology in Santa Fe. So there's some high pressure sodium lights here and some of those 5,000 Kelvin LEDs that have been installed by the city's engineering division over the past few years. And you can see also this light over here is a 5,000 Kelvin LED privately owned in the parking lot. But you can see that 5,000 Kelvin color temperature is pretty white and blue looking, especially compared to the high pressure sodium. And that the lighting distribution pattern at this intersection is kind of all over the place because of the different technologies that are there. So as we move through the intersection and down the street, we get to our first demonstration fixture. And you can see this 5,000 Kelvin LED here for comparison against that 3,000 Kelvin demonstration fixture and the difference in the feel of the color of the light beneath the fixture. And you can also see that this LED fixture illuminates the full width of the roadway. And as we continue to move down the street, we get to a high pressure sodium light on the other side, which is quite demonstrative of the issues with the existing infrastructure in Santa Fe. So underneath the fixture, the street is really well lit, but across the street, that other side of the street, unfortunately, there's almost no light over there. So it's very, very dark, while behind the fixture on the ground is pretty well lit, but the light isn't really needed there. So we have a lot of light going where we don't need it and almost no light going where we really do need it. Continuing to move down the street, we go past another one of our demonstration LED fixtures. You can see that the light distribution across the road. Can you guys hear me?
We can again now. I'm not sure how you got muted, but
Thank you.
we've
Sorry,
got
can
you.
you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you, Cheyenne. I think Regina was
Okay,
muting
great.
people as they entered.
So continuing on, this throws the light across the street, and we also reduce the backlight significantly. So we have the light just on the sidewalk, but we're not seeing nearly as much light pouring out behind the fixture onto the ground. It's actually going on the roadway where we need it. So we continue down the street past another high pressure sodium where we see those same issues, the backlight being pretty dramatic, but the light across the street really not being effective. And as we continue, here's another one of our demonstration fixtures, and you can kind of compare and contrast the distribution on the street. Going around the corner, we have another high pressure sodium compared to one of our other LED fixtures. And then as the video concludes, we go past another existing fixture, and you can see that one of the problems with the street lighting in Santa Fe currently is that the light distribution is just really not effective to illuminate the roadway like it should be. And that is the conclusion of my video and presentation. So if we'd like to move to group discussion now, Paige, that'd be great.
Great. Yeah, and I think we're just going to do a round robin, as I mentioned, of our working group members. And I'm going to call on you. I think we're going to go to 2 minutes just because we're a little bit behind and we want to make sure there's room for discussion after the design kind of presentation. So I'm going to start, Alba, I'm going to start with you. And if our working group members don't mind saying their name and kind of who they're with before they launch into their feedback, that would be great.
Okay, my name is Alba Blondes. I'm with the Southwest Santa Fe Advocates in Tierra Contenta, the southwest area of the city of Santa Fe. From my visitation of both Frenchie's Field and of the Jaguar site, I found the Jaguar site, the lighting there to be clear enough to see to walk. To light up the street. I found the light at Frenchie's. Some of the lights there was a glare when I was driving, seemed to bounce off the windshield. I found that bothersome. The feedback I've gotten has not been a great deal of citizen responding to me directly, but there was some concern about uniformity of the color of lighting throughout the city for whatever was chosen to please have all the city have the same color. That was one. The other one was there was some concern about the health of people with the high intensity bluish light. But I did not find that the light, particularly at Jaguar, I did not find that light to be at all glaring or highly intense, not in comparison to those 5,000 Kelvin lights that you see at Cesar Chavez School. I have faith that that the process that the city has gone through has been carefully done, that it isn't flying by the seat of their pants to make a quick change. And I feel confident because the council vote was unanimous in favor of this project. And I think that speaks to the importance of it. Obviously, the hodgepodge of lighting and the lights that are out and the lights that are on and PNM not getting to them, all those are concerns that I think citizens have. I don't think they get too tied up in kelvins and lumens and luminaires. The John Q citizen just wants to be able to walk down the street, see where he or she is walking, not stumble over something, not have a lot of glare as they're walking under a light. So I think that's what your average citizen's worried about. And of course, they don't want any effect on wildlife if at all possible, because most people love their wildlife here. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alba. Hope, to you next.
Hi, this is Hope Reed with the Mayor's Committee on Disability, and I visited all the sites. Can you hear me okay?
We've got you. Thanks, Hope.
Okay. I visited all the sites and I found the lighting on. I liked your video that you just showed on Jaguar. It helped me understand it better. I visited all the sites. It was hard to tell a big difference between each site because they were just lights, and so I haven't gotten any feedback of any concerns on how the lights can be improved. I think that the sites I visited, they all looked good to me. I couldn't really see a big difference, especially on St. Mike's. You really couldn't tell. There was so much ambient light there, you couldn't really tell what the demonstration lights were doing. But I don't have any specific comments right now. I think that the lights look good so far that you've shown. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Hope. And Peter.
Okay, well, related to the demonstration sites, I made a second visit on Sunday night to look at the updated, the dual optics visual comfort lens installs. So that visit was only limited to Agua Fria and Governor Miles. I took lux at grade readings with the luminance meter. And it was interesting to me that the difference between the 2700 Kelvin and the 3000 Kelvin, lower Kelvin doesn't make it worse for foot candles at grade. So I was surprised to see that. I think there's been some concern amongst people that, lower Kelvins means that it's not going to be as useful on the roadway surface or the sidewalk surface. And this, along with the demonstration that we were invited to go look at the Santa Fe, New Mexican site, has proved to me that lower Kelvin ratings don't compromise our ability to see. In fact, I think it actually enhances our visibility. So foot candles, lux at grade, I was interested to see that it was actually quite similar. And I didn't go back to Governor Miles. My opinion of that location is that, the ratings for those lights, the temperature to color temperature it's too great. I think we could do just fine with a lower rating at those locations as well. The St. Mike's site, I did get a quick visit in on Sunday night, and I could definitely tell the difference between the lower Kelvin rating and the 3000. So you had 2700, I think it was north side, and the 3000s were on the south side. That was quite apparent to me. And visibility was fine for all, but as Hope pointed out, there's really no uniformity with all the other ambient light around. So I could see the difference in the luminaires themselves. It was harder to see that on the ground.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Peter. Ruth, to you.
So I went to Frenchie's and Jaguar, and I took two friends with me who are artists, and I said, I need you to go with me because you know color and you know hues. And I'm looking at my notes, and at Frenchie's, we learned that they were split between 2700 and 3000, and we couldn't really tell the difference between lights. We could, I'm looking at my notes, and half of the lights we said seemed to be brighter, but the point was that it was really hard to discern the difference. My one observation at Frenchie's was I stood at the intersection of Frenchie's and Osage and realized that as a woman, if I had the occasion to have to be on the street after dark, I'd want intersections, especially where I have to wait for the light to change, to be brighter. So I don't know that that's, anywhere in any specifications, but just as a consumer, it occurred to me that that would make me much more comfortable. So then we went over to Jaguar and learned that all of the lights at Jaguar were 3,000. But there at Jaguar, I was able to see what we saw in the drone, where the current lights shine unnecessarily a lot behind. And so I felt like that was a more effective demonstration because I was able to see what's possible and what is. So, and what we also learned was that on Jaguar, it's considered a residential street and not a major thoroughfare like a St. Michael's or a St. Francis. So that was, and it's lower because it has lower traffic patterns. So I thought that was interesting. I would, as a very analytical person, I would have liked to have gone to the demos and looked at a light and been told with the sign, this is 27, this is 3,000, this is 4,500, just so that I could then stand there and say, and compare and contrast, because that's just how my brain works. But that's okay. And as Alba said, I'm not sure that John Q. Public cares as long as John Q. Public can see.
Thanks, Ruth.
From looking at the drone tonight, very interesting.
Ruth,
that,
I'm gonna have to, sorry, I'm
okay.
gonna have to cut you there for now, but
Okay.
please hold that thought. There'll be another chance for discussion. Just want to make sure we get to everybody. Richard, please, to you.
Really two observations. One, lots of people are concerned about better lighting in terms of more uniformly lighting, less shadows, a sense of safer feel as you walk around cars, you're riding a bike, you're driving, so that you don't have the shadows and the dark spots we now have. And I think that's something in the program I look forward to seeing it address. I know that's been talked about as a reason for the program, along with ability to keep lights out of people's houses and limit its backflow to other places. The other comment I had was what basically shown in your survey. Everybody wants lower Kelvin, more dark skies. And as my emails with Regina said, we want the lowest possible Kelvin, the best possible dark skies as consistent with other things. And to my view and the feedback I got from most people, the 2000 was very good for that. People were really very upset that the 2200 was not there. And because that's certainly the recommended level of the IDA. And not required level, but recommended level. And people would really have liked to have seen that. And that seems to be almost everyone's preference is you go as low as possible. And that seemed to be what your survey was. Everybody was at a level or less, and everybody was happy to go less. So to the extent we're dealing with dark skies, which is fortunately in terms of delivery, I think a separate thing, very strong feeling for the best dark skies we can have and the need to show the 2200 Kelvin so people can actually see what that looks like.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Richard. And Madeline.
Hi, thank you. I sort of am here representing myself, but I would say the constituencies I represent are young people in Santa Fe, runners, walkers, joggers, cyclists, people who use the illuminated city infrastructure for things other than driving. And then additionally, I have a background in sort of urban infrastructure and wildlife research and work professionally in conservation. And the overwhelming thing I heard when I engaged folks or folks engaged me on this was a lot of questions around the tuning process and making sure that that is accessible and really clear cut. Because I would say, ask people how they feel about streetlights, and they'd be like, oh, I have an extra streetlight in front of my house and I don't know how to report it to P&M because reporting over illumination isn't an option on the drop-down menu. Or there's this dark spot near where I pick my kids up, or there's a dark spot where I park when I go to dinner. And a lot of that type of stuff and a lot of lack of clarity around what it's going to look like in a request for a consolidated reporting portal, and one that's available in English and Spanish as well, making sure that it's bilingual and accessible to everyone. Then sort of, just a broader concern I had is obviously the majority of respondents that we saw in the earlier presentation were from districts 1 and 2. And I just sort of want to raise the equity concern and conversation and make sure that we're really thinking about people who aren't represented here in the communities in Santa Fe that maybe weren't able to be reached out to because most of the materials in the project were in English or didn't have time, or like there are people that are super busy and work a lot of jobs and have a lot of kids, and we're still dealing in the middle of being in the pandemic, so aren't able to be here. So just a request to really think about what an equitable lighting design looks like and making sure we're also prioritizing public safety. I reached out to an individual at University of Pennsylvania who researched the impacts of lighting on crime, and basically in general, having areas lit, doesn't go into Kelvin's or not, it can be a really important non-police intervention to making sure not just that people feel safe, but that people are not being profiled because of low lighting in an area.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Madeline. David, to you.
I'm David Carr, and I'm representing the Santa Fe chapter of the American Institute of Architects. And hopefully I can get through all 4 demonstration sites in the amount of time. On the Frenchies field, well, first off, I visited all 4 sites on the night that we had all 4 of the original demonstrations. And I've gone back to both the Frenchies and Governor Miles. So on the Frenchies, first off, I think there's information in the tables on the website that are not correct as far as Frenchies. I think the west side is actually the 2700 kelvins from what I could observe. And if you look, there's 2 different charts, and there's conflicting information on those. But my preference on Frenchies would be the 2700 with the lens. On St. Michael's Drive, as other people have mentioned, there's too much ambient lighting. Seems to me like a better demonstration would have been farther up the street without, in areas that didn't have quite as much ambient lighting. But I will make one comment. The Kia dealership had a lot of light, but if you go to the new Toyota dealership, when you drive along there, even though it's a dealership, there's a lot less light. And the worst by far is the Buick dealership on Cerritos Road, which I can see from my house on West Alameda. On Jaguar Drive, the aerial view, this was a good thing to set tonight, but when I went out there in person from the street, you get a totally different view of that. And there's, to me, the ambient lighting from the HPS was interfering with the LEDs. And then on Governor Miles, basically the same preferences for the 2700K with the VR lens.
Excellent. Thank you, David. And Ken.
I think the only demo site I didn't like was at the New Mexican Printing House. That was way too yellow for my taste, but it was a commercial site, which leads to me the need to change the zoning for commercial. Like on St. Michael's, those are way too bright on the gas stations and the dealerships. That would be the next task for the city to undertake, it seems to me. But I like all the other official demonstration sites. I think 2700 is a max, obviously, we should go for. And dimming after midnight would be a consideration I think we all should consider as well. Frenchies, I thought was pretty confusing when I walked over there through the park. It was, there's 4 or 5 different sources of light, so I think it was hard to tell which ones we were supposed to be looking at, because there's a lot of 5000K all the way down to Siler Road on Agua Fria, and that could be like this is way too much, but that's not what we're supposed to be looking at. All in all, I think we're making some progress.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Ken and Nancy.
Nancy, you need to unmute yourself, I think. We can't hear you.
Just went out for a second. There it goes. I went to 3 of the sites. At Frenchy Field, the lighting seemed very glary, and I would have liked to have known which was the 2700 and which was the 3000. Comments from people that I talked to, is there a way to use shields and lenses to modify the glare on that light? At Frenchy, on Jaguar Drive, I had an opportunity to talk to the Dalkia representative, J.C. Florenson, and I asked him, because the feedback I have gotten, I represent the Public Safety Committee, but I'm also on the board of the Historic Santa Fe Foundation. And a lot of the folks there are very concerned about dark skies, maintaining our historic skyscapes and our historic streetscapes, and having lower Kelvin, but at the same time being able to maintain the safety that's required, because as a representative of the Public Safety Committee, that is a primary concern. But anyway, on Jaguar Drive, the representative there, when I was asking him, I said, can you provide lighting at 2200 Kelvin, which we know is advantageous to dark skies, animals, humans, etc., as opposed to the 2700, 4000 being proposed. And he said the company was not planning to do so because the equipment to be used was not warranted below 2700 K. And below that, the number of watts to get the lumens needed to meet traffic safety would go up, which would diminish the energy savings. So I have, a lot of questions about other available equipment, which I understand is available, that can provide what we need, lower K, but also sufficient watts without driving up the energy costs. I would like to talk more about that.
Nancy, I'm going to have to stop you there.
Yes.
For your 2 minutes.
my 2 minutes are up.
Apologies. Thank you so much. And I did just want to share briefly, we had 2 members of the working group who aren't able to attend, but who did provide some written feedback. So from Lucy Foma, who kind of articulated representing a racial equity and safety advocate. She shared that walking and biking are prevalent among low-income people and people of color, but street conditions are often more dangerous than the walking and biking conditions experienced by white middle-class Americans. A 2015 study of nighttime lighting practices in England and Wales found no evidence that dimming or turning off streetlights at night affected crime or vehicle accidents. While brighter lighting may not directly have an impact on safety, perceived safety could make more people use a facility, and more people using a public space could make it safer. Hard shadows in streetlights are worse than no lighting because the eye cannot see beyond the hard shadow. Streets are public spaces, and different cultures use streets and parks differently. Let's be aware of creating public spaces that welcome all. So again, that was from Lucy. And then Tom Jervis, who described himself as representing the Sangre de Cristo Audubon Society. He said, in the absence of clear information, it seems to me that the major problem with this project is the absence of professional engineering guidance. My position is therefore that the city must engage a disinterested engineer, a registered illumination engineer, unaffiliated with any potential suppliers and unaffiliated with Dalkia, to advise the city on a path forward that includes illumination levels, watts per square foot or equivalent, needed to protect public health and safety, color, temperature as low as compatible with those specified illumination levels, and recommendations on potential suppliers of the equipment needed to provide those illumination levels. So just making sure those are part of the conversation. But I think now we will turn it back over to Cheyenne, and then we'll spend some time at the end allowing for a discussion in response to the designs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paige. And thank you everyone for your feedback on the demonstrations. Really good to hear sort of all the different opinions. And it's good to hear that so many folks were able to see the majority or all of our demonstration sites. All right, share my screen again. And you all can see this. Yes, okay, great. So just to sort of contextualize what we're talking about here, there are 3 different roadway types in Santa Fe: residential, local, and major. And these roadway types require essentially different solutions because they need different levels of light due to the speed, the traffic level, and the sort of setting that the roadways are in. So the majority of lights in the city of Santa Fe are residential. About 60% of the total number of streetlights in the city are residential. So thinking about the solution for lighting design, the residential fixture option is going to have a big impact because it's 60% of the lights. The local roadway lights are about 29% of the lights, and the major roadway lights are only about 13%. So when we're thinking about the solutions, residential is the majority of the lights, local makes up a lot of it, and then major is just a little bit of the lighting in Santa Fe. And just to provide some clarity around the New Mexico Department of Transportation roads and things of that nature, the city is going through a road transfer agreement that will mean the only roadways that will continue to be owned by NMDOT in Santa Fe are St. Francis and a section of Cerrillos. I believe Director Wheeler can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but we've estimated that about 270 fixtures will continue to be NMDOT owned, and that amounts to just under 5% of the total streetlights in the city.
And could you give us some idea of how we could tell what's residential and what's local, what's major by looking at the street, or where we could look that up?
Yeah, so I'm not sure, Jamie Aranda from PNM is here. I'm not sure if the PNM streetlight website has information on if the existing lights are 100 watt or 250 watt or what, but basically it's just the street type. I'm not really sure, candidly, if there's a good way, Regina.
How about if we answer that with what we can? I think we can work up a map for you. That's probably the easiest way.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Richard, for that. I think that'll be helpful.
Could you put the map on the Dalkia Santa Fe website?
As soon as we put it together, we'll put it, get it out there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so just to provide some context there, and then the status quo in the city of Santa Fe is sort of a hodgepodge of a lot of different technology. So there's high pressure sodium, metal halide, and mercury vapor, which are all older, more obsolete technologies that consume a lot of energy for the amount of lighting that they're putting out. And the lighting isn't really directed. So you actually have to get a lot of light coming out of the fixture to get some appropriate amount of light on the street. And then we also have
if I could just do and inject something. So what I'm going to present to you here is a list of the various lighting design options that we are then going to show you some analysis of, and then we're going to get your feedback on them. So she's about to give you a list of a number of configurations that we did analysis. We'll look at that on the next slide, and then we'll get your feedback. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Regina. Sorry, I should have provided some context at the beginning. Yeah, that's what we're doing here. So I'll provide analysis of the status quo on the following slide, but I just want to introduce our different design scenarios before we get into the data. And then we've also talked about there's 4,000 and 5,000 Kelvin LEDs throughout the city as well. So design options that were presented or discussed on February 24th based on the project goals. Design A is the originally proposed residential and local streets with 3,000 Kelvin and major roads, including NMDOT, to be 4,000 Kelvin. That was the design that was originally presented on February 24th. that we've actually moved pretty far away from within the past few weeks and months really of doing research and working with PNM and the city. Design B, there was a request at the governing body meeting for all 3000 Kelvin. Could we accommodate an entirely 3000 Kelvin design? So we'll be showing you the data associated with that. And of course, the NMDOT owned lights are left out of that equation because they require 4000 Kelvin. And then updated design options based on PNM's rate 20, our conversations with NMDOT and community engagement. So residential roads, 2700 Kelvin, local and major roads, 3000 Kelvin. DOT is still saying that they require 4000 Kelvin on their roads. So we're really just thinking about mostly postponing those until DOT is able to update their specifications to be compliant with Santa Fe's community guided lighting design. So leaving those out as well. Design E shows us the lens options for those same color temperature configurations. So in design E, we'd be putting those lenses and shields, those visual comfort lenses, to reduce some of the glare that people are feeling coming from the residential and local fixtures. The major roadway fixtures, which were demonstrated on St. Michael's, those would be the only ones that don't have lenses. And as we've discussed, that's only 13% of the streetlights in the city. And then we also added an additional design option to evaluate based on our community engagement activities. So we looked at what would be the impact on the design scenario if we did 2200 Kelvin fixtures, residential, local, and major roadways. So a comprehensive 2200 Kelvin solution across the city. So now I'm going to show you the analysis, and we're going to talk about energy savings in terms of kilowatt hours annually. So how much less electricity are each of these design options going to be using versus the status quo? We're going to talk about lumen output citywide. So if you add up all the lumens coming out of all the fixtures, so the brightness indicator of the fixtures, lumen output citywide, average color temperature citywide, so averaging the residential, local, and major roadways and their counts, what's our average color temperature, the cost impact for the city of each of these different design situations, and the risks for the city for each of these different design situations. So here's the table. The status quo has no energy savings. It just is what it is. The lumen output citywide is about 81 million lumens. And this is because the high pressure sodium, metal halide, and mercury vapor lights require a lumen output that's much higher than their LED counterparts because the older technology isn't able to effectively direct light on the roadway like LEDs are. So you're actually able to get a much better foot candle reading on the ground from LED lights with less lumen output than with the existing technology at a higher lumen output. The average color temperature citywide, we're estimating, including the LEDs, to be about 2400 Kelvin. And obviously there would be no cost or risk impact for the city with the status quo. So design A is that first 3000 on local and residential roads and 4000 on major that we presented. So that's sort of the baseline. And you can see that the energy savings is 3.3 million kilowatt hours a year, which is a lot. That does great things for Santa Fe's sustainability goals. And we get about 51 million lumens citywide. So even with that first design that we're really no longer even thinking about, we're already reducing the lumen output in the city pretty dramatically. But the average color temperature citywide would be about 3100 Kelvin. And because we've heard so much that we want to reduce the color temperature, we're looking into much more progressive options. So design B shows us all 3000 Kelvin, and there's really just minor differences in energy savings and lumen output between design A and design B. And the color temperature citywide would be 3000 because everything would be 3000. Design C is that 2200 Kelvin fixture option that I mentioned that we're looking at because of the community engagement. And you're seeing an asterisk next to every one of these numbers because at this time, PNM currently doesn't have a viable fixture option. And I'll let my colleague, Jamie Aranda, who's on, speak a little bit more to that. Jamie, are you still on with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, and so we looked into this 2200 Kelvin as an option, but unfortunately our current approved vendors do not carry a 2200 Kelvin. And even if there were a 2200 Kelvin light available, it would be likely that we would have to go back to the PRC and file, depending on what the specs look like. And that could be anywhere from 18 to 24 months once the filing has been submitted. So I think that's where we see some limitations, is that the 2200 Kelvin light is not even available with any of our vendors at this time.
Thank you so much, Jamie. And then just to talk further about this design scenario, so it does reduce the energy savings quite a bit. So talking about, to Peter's point earlier, about the lumen output that you're able to get out of lower color temperature fixtures, technology in LEDs has progressed a lot, and we can get a lot of lumens out of those lower color temperature fixtures, but where you're sacrificing is the wattage. So you have to increase the energy input pretty significantly to get that same lighting level output as a higher color temperature fixture. So instead of saving above 3 million kilowatt hours annually, it would reduce the energy savings to about 2.7 million kilowatt hours annually. You'd have the same lumen output citywide as the other situations of about 51, and the average color temperature would be 2200 Kelvin. And another consideration with that design, the city and Dalkia have been able to identify a fixture that we were able to crunch these numbers with, but the guarantee on the fixture is only 5 years instead of the 10 years that we have with the other fixtures that we're looking at. And to Jamie's point earlier about none of the PNM approved vendors having a 2200 Kelvin light, the lower Kelvin lighting is a developing technology. So as we saw with 5,000 and 4,000 Kelvins that are installed in the city now, the city installed those because at the time they were the most efficient. 3,000 and 2,700 Kelvin lights hadn't caught up yet. And that's basically where we are now with the lower Kelvin lighting. It hasn't been researched or developed enough to guarantee the same savings or the same efficacy or the same reliability. So if the city went with that option, it would be kind of a question mark because there hasn't been a lot of testing or other sort of rigorous analysis done on these lower Kelvin lighting fixtures that come from top quality vendors. Design D is that 2,700 Kelvin residential and 3,000 local or major with no lenses. So this gives us 3 million kilowatt hours annually savings, that same 51 million lumens, and our average color temperature throughout the city is going to be about 2,800 Kelvin. And there's not really a cost or a risk impact. We've been able to identify high quality, rigorously tested fixtures that are compliant for PNM and PRC standards that would work for the city as well. And then design E is that lens and shielded option. So the fixtures that were placed at Frenchie's Field for local roadway solutions are actually a lower lumen output fixture than what was originally there. So because we're reducing the lumens, we're also reducing the energy consumption of those local roadway fixtures. So we're able to capture more energy savings, 3.2 million versus design D. But the lumen output citywide is reduced pretty significantly because the lenses reduce the lighting output. So you're looking at about 39 million lumens citywide instead of 51 with all the other scenarios. So it will be, generally speaking, less light than the other scenarios and less than half of the amount of lumen output in the city currently. And again, the average color temperature is going to be about 2,800 Kelvin. And the cost and risk impact for the city is still being analyzed by the city and PNM and Dalkia. So we are working to finalize the cost and risk impact of that model for the city. So with that, that is the presentation of these different design scenarios, and we're still crunching numbers, about all of these different things considering, and now we'd like to, I think, open the floor to discussion.
Great. Yeah, and Cheyenne, I think just to make sure we're kind of monitoring time accordingly, should we leave that slide up? Would people find that valuable to be able to reference? I think maybe I'm seeing some nods. And then making sure we leave like 5-ish minutes to close. Is that enough, Cheyenne and Regina? 5 minutes to close? Okay, great. So let's have an open discussion, but people, raise your hands and I'll make it my job to make sure everybody has a chance to speak who wants to. So as a reminder, please raise your hand if you'd like to respond, and try to keep your response to about a minute, just to leave room for everyone to respond if they'd like to. Yeah, Ken, go ahead.
Cheyenne, remind me of the value of the changing of the lens.
You mean the lumen output level? Like it reduces the lumen output by about 10% over the fixture without a lens.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Ken. We'll go to David and then Hope and then Richard.
I guess I'd like to see more information about putting lenses on like the Jaguar installation and St. Mike's. And also want to bring up, there's filtered LED lights, and you can get a 3000 Kelvin light that reduces the blue light like 98 or 99%. So that's one way of using the 3000 K, but getting rid of the blue light that's a problem. And I mention this because a electrical engineer that I've been working with for over 15 years and has done street lighting around the state and the region. His experience has been that the majority of people like the 3000.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, David, but are we doing clarifying questions, or are we going around with our comments at this point, Paige? Could I just get clarification on that?
Yeah, I think responses to the design options or clarifying questions.
Oh, or both. Okay, so then I wanted to say that I would really appreciate actually hearing from every single person. And if we could just go around the room and do 3 minutes or as much time as we have is what we had really planned.
Sure.
I'd really like to give, this is a really important piece of the feedback. And then just to your question, David, and I'm sorry to interrupt. The shields that are on the Frenchie's Field installation would be the same ones that would be on the Jaguar Drive. St. Mike's is actually the only major roadway in the demos. So you have seen what would be on Jaguar in the shielded, and it's only the St. Mike's ones that wouldn't be in that option.
Is there a reason why we can't do anything on St. Mike's?
If that's a clarifying question, I would say yes, it's because the roadway lighting requirements, the lenses actually take down the lumens quite a bit. And if you'll notice, they really narrow the scope. And that's the challenge. So if we want to stay in the low Kelvin range, we can achieve our safety requirements without the lens, but the lens reduces our ability to do that.
All right. I'm going to keep moving us through the list. So
I'm sorry, but David still had time left, and I stole his time, and I feel like he should get at least another minute, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's about another 30 seconds if we're making time for everybody. But please go ahead, David.
Just one other comment about Frenchie's Field. That one light that was on the corner where the traffic light is, in the original setup, it seemed to be actually brighter than the other, like on 3000 K instead of the 2700. And my wife made a comment at that point that she liked that higher light output at the corner for somebody who was waiting on for a bus. So we may want to look at that.
That's a great point. Yeah, thank you, David. All right, let's go Hope, Nancy, and then we'll keep making our way through the list to give everyone some time.
Okay, this is Hope Reed with the Mayor's Committee on Disability, and I like this last chart you showed very much. It's been very helpful, and that's all I wanted to say right now is that I like this information. Thank you.
Excellent. Hope, do you have any kind of preference of the designs, or just appreciate the information?
Just the information. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Hope. All right, and Nancy, go ahead. Oh, Nancy, I think you're still muted.
Okay.
There we go.
I just wanted to get clarification because the people I've talked to are very much advocates of the 2200K, and I know what you just said. And I just wanted your input on the New Mexicans project with Crossroads LED, which claims and provided information that the 2000K streetlights have the efficacy rating nearly identical to the 2700K fixtures with about the same wattage use. And if you could just say a little bit more about that, because my community is really pushing for that.
Thank you so much for the question, Nancy. I think I'll take that. So we actually have asked for full specifications on the Crossroads LEDs and have not received them. Yesterday, we did get the picture of the front of a report for a different light. It's a below 2000 Kelvin light. But we're happy to continue to pursue full specifications so that we can do an analysis. One of the big challenges, I think two big ones for me as a city person that's really responsible for creating infrastructure that's reliable and replaceable and will perform for a long time to come as we invest the money in this light conversion. The lights only come with a 5-year warranty rather than 10. And that means this $2 million replacement project would have to happen more frequently, whereas the other LEDs come with a 10-year warranty. That's half as often. The other thing is that, this is big infrastructure in the city. We have thousands of lights. We spend millions of dollars a year operating this infrastructure, repairing it and maintaining it. It has to be a proven technology by a tier 1 vendor that can back it up with warranties. So, it's when you're talking about full scale city infrastructure, it's not the same as a parking lot in a private section. So what I would say is that right now, I believe that we are excited to have found technology that can meet our safety requirements and our dark sky aspirations, really lower Kelvin than we had ever thought we would be able to find. But that maybe in 10 years or 15, when we do it again, then maybe even lower Kelvins will have reached the same level of reliability. So that's what I would say. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah. If you, at some point you could just provide some documentation that would be really helpful.
You bet.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Regina. Madeline?
Yeah, I have a question related to like technological evolution and adaptation, which is like totally understand everything that was just said. And at what pace is this tech evolving? If that question makes sense, like if we're doing this project 5 years in the future, are there going to be a lot more options available? And how's that figuring into the design process? What's sort of the information feedback loop around all of this?
Yeah,
thank you for that question as well. It's a really, really good one. It's a super important one for us to answer right now. It's probably, it's hard to predict the future. But what we do know is that about 10 years ago, the standards were 5,000 and 4,000 Kelvin lights. Los Angeles converted to 4,000. We installed 5,000 and 4,000 lights, right? And we were actually surprised to find the 2,700s and the 3,000s that could meet our needs. So, it might be 5 years. It's certainly not less. That's going to give you the reliability, security. We don't want to be on the bleeding edge with our technology. We're willing to be on the cutting edge. These comfort lenses are also very new technology that we just found. And I really hope everyone goes and sees that. So 5-10 year horizon, I would think that we might continue to see these stepping down. So maybe in 5 years, you might see a 2,400 that meets the needs and that kind of thing. It's hard to predict the future, but that's kind of what we see from the past.
Excellent. Thanks, Madeline, and thanks, Regina. Richard, to you. Oh, Richard, I think you're still muted if you're responding. Sorry.
For me, it's a whole number of questions on this thing. The first thing I mentioned is people wanted an even, non-shadow, good light. And it seems to me the lens help provide that. Looms per se don't. So I have no idea from this information whether the goal of uniform light and adequate light is achieved with the lenses on E or design A with 51.4, or whether that's all concentrated light. So this information by itself to me on looms is not at all useful because it doesn't tell me what it delivers. The second issue is I've seen lots of people saying that, in fact, the 2200K information can be found, that the lights are reliable, you can get the warranties. So I really want to see some detailed information that could be cross-checked with people who say they have that before I'm willing to accept that information on design C.
Excellent. Do you want to give Cheyenne and Regina a chance to respond to either of those if they
I
have a
wanted to
response?
respond to the first one. Thank you so much. What we should tell you, and I think it's a great piece of feedback, Richard, is that people want to see it. So what we're showing here is actually has included foot candles on the ground analysis that meets to the levels that our existing infrastructure can, the necessary.
They're existing where? Foot candle levels?
On the ground.
Okay.
So we have that photometric analysis of the lighting of the ground, and that's why these have made the cut, because they are found to meet the foot candles on the ground sufficiently to meet safety standards. The one that's we're still working on is the lens one, but we can show you some examples. Of course, there's hundreds of foot candles on the ground, photometric charts that have been developed, but we have verified that it does meet illumination requirements on the ground.
Including that they're spread out and not concentrated, don't create shadows?
Not overly. Have you gone to look at the Governor Miles with the lenses?
Mm-hmm.
That one's, I think that's got a lot of dark spots on it, but I'd love to hear people's feedback. But not a lot of shadows, but maybe some more dark spots in between.
And part of that has to do with placement of poles.
Yeah. And Richard, I'm gonna have to keep us moving,
right.
Just to make sure we have time for the remaining three. We're gonna go.
I've been mostly hearing a response from Regina, so let me make a couple of my points quickly. So on the 22K, I want to see. I think I need real specifications before I'm going to trust what the vendor is saying about what it can and can't find. And with regard to P&M in 2 years, I'm pretty sure that could be speeded up a great deal with a little bit of political influence, and that we get there, but it wouldn't be a 2-year or 18-month trip.
Okay, go ahead, Jamie.
If I could just respond to the 2200 Kelvin light at P&M. So currently none of the vendors carry a 2200 Kelvin light. So that's an important thing to remember, is that our approved vendors do not have that as a viable option at this time to even go for any kind of approval.
I think it's also worth commenting on the duration. It would be like a rate case, Richard. And so the idea of even 2 years is incredibly optimistic. It's got to go through the whole PRC hearing approval process. So
that could be done in a few months if there's no real controversy. So let's be serious.
Thanks, Richard. I want to get to Peter and then Ruth and then Alba. Oh, Peter, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Okay, yeah. Hey, I forgot to say at the beginning at the original round of comments that what I share is my own opinion. I'm speaking for myself. I don't speak for a group, any organization or agency, public or private. So things that I have observed during this process, and I just want to say thank you all for everything you put into this. I see some useful information, but I've also seen a lot of inconsistencies and things that have been shared. And corrections when offered have been made, but overall I'm losing some confidence in this process. I don't know that we're following what the governing body actually asked us to do. I hope we can do it and get it in time to present a proper plan. But I really feel, and I'm picking up on Tom. Tom mentioned a third-party independent unbiased review of what we're putting together. I think that's a very important thing for us to consider. If we're serious about being a dark sky community and getting that designation, the streetlight project is the center pole of that big tent that's going to include the local lighting ordinances for residents and businesses as well. So I think we need to take the time to really seriously consider bringing in someone who has an independent, unbiased view.
Thanks for that, Peter. And Ruth and then Alba, and then I'll let.
I don't know if you just saw, but Alba had to go to her next meeting.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So it looks like design C is no win, but because we're also talking about the evolution of the science of street lighting, maybe that's something that we can consider next go around. And in the meantime, before I guess I have a full opinion, I'd like to see the finalizations of the numbers that are still waiting on design E, and then we can weigh apples to apples.
Excellent. Great point, Ruth. Regina and Cheyenne, do you all want to respond to any of those or talk about the next steps?
Oh, well, let's see. I just really appreciate everybody's feedback. And if you haven't gotten a chance to go see the lenses, please do, and send us a little message about what you think. I really love them on Agua Fria myself. I think it's a huge improvement. And then the other thing is I'd really like to invite you guys to be at the governing body meeting on next Wednesday, the 26th. We will have the executive director of the International Dark Sky Association will be presenting that night, Ruskin Hartley. And we've been in communication and collaboration with him. And so we definitely agree with everything people say that, we need to be sure that this street lighting design definitely keeps us on a path for becoming a dark sky designated community. And as other people have said, it's really just the first step, because the next thing we need to talk about is those gas stations and car lots and school parking lots. But we'd love to have you there to make public comment and to share your thoughts about the process and about the design options, and just really appreciate your guys' feedback so much. It's really helpful.
And Cheyenne and Regina, it sounds like people can continue to submit public comment. Is that true? And maybe we could put the link for that in the chat, or just circulate it so that everyone has access to that.
It's on the project website. I think everybody knows where it is. You just scroll to the bottom of the project website and you can put comments in there. That would be a great place to receive it. It makes it really easy for us to compile, but we can also accept emails.
Excellent.
And also, I'm sorry, Paige. No, I just wanted to say that the polls should have a marking on them that has the link to the website also, and a QR code that you can scan. And I'm happy to distribute the link via email for anyone who's interested. And just to echo what Regina said, I really appreciate everyone's time and your commitment to understanding this deeply and interfacing with your fellow community members to make this the best project possible for Santa Fe.
Excellent. And I think, Cheyenne, you also mentioned, or it sounds like the one sort of action item is adding a map. And then there were some outstanding questions, and excellent. Well, I think that was everything we had hoped to cover this evening. And Regina and Cheyenne, did we miss anything? Oh, excellent. Great. Well, we really appreciate everyone's time and willingness to share their ideas, and look forward to the process moving forward.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you out there in the streets at night.
Have a dark sky night.